I'm Robo Kenobi, and this is the part 2 to the options menu video that I was not originally thinking of making because I didn't realize I was even going to be making any fixes to the options menu. So after the options menu video I made, I was just kind of thinking, what if I went in and fixed it so I didn't have any of the weird bugs of it, like having to have everything so spaced out so it wouldn't overwrite text with just the options menu box that isn't really supposed to be there. And so I went into code and started doing that. I also thought that I'd add sound effects to the menu, because honestly, I thought it was kind of sad not having any sounds in that menu. The thing I was not expecting was how kind of complicated some of this was going to be. So, for the options text, what I did was I moved all the headers to like the very first line of the options menu, so it wasn't going to be overwritten easily, and that was not very easy because I had to basically tell it, like, no, only load one line of the options box. Make the header this. And after getting that working, I had to move the text around some so it would line up again, but after that, it wasn't too bad. The worst part was actually getting the on-off stuff to work, in which I had to go tell it, like, yeah, go load all these on-offs here in both the active and inactive text. The inactive text was harder because apparently it didn't want to just like load all the ones. They only wanted to load the active one. I had to add a section of code in there to go load the on-off text and load the state of the variable in there. And, Sonic 2's already had that in the way I was using it before, but that was also why the text was overwriting parts of the screen and why I had to have them all spaced out. And so moving it all to be on different lines of the screen required a little bit of extra code in to make sure that it would actually load it and load the on-off text in the right spot, the right line of screen. And after I did that, then I decided I was going to go add sound in after adding a back to menu button. And with the back of menu button, I had to add a bunch of extra spaces afterwards so that it wouldn't show an on-off text thing. With the sounds, I had to make a new entire routine that basically just used a different variable instead of D0 to go play the sound, because otherwise the options menu selection would be overwritten. This is just how Sonic 2's options menu were written. I didn't want to go rewrite everything to not use D0. So instead, I just made a play sound routine that instead of using D0, used D1, which wasn't used, and so that was pretty easy. Now, there's like one other really weird thing that the options menu did, which was if there were not enough characters in total, it would cause an address error. Now, I'm not sure why exactly, but I figured it out when I was clearing out the whole spaces blank text thing. And it was like, why am I getting an address error? And I added a space, and it worked fine. And so if I have this warning in the source code that says, if you get an address error, put a space here. It's kind of silly, and I don't know why it has to be like that, but it did.